to sound dramatic, but every time I buy a new sketchbook, I'm basically buying a fresh start. No bad drawings yet, no questionable decisions, just pure potential. Very clean, very optimistic, slightly delusional. New beginnings feel good because nothing has gone wrong yet. So instead of buying another fresh start, I decided to face one of my old ones. This sketchbook has been sitting on my shelf for a while. Not abandoned, just strategically ignored. So about 2 years ago, I made a video where I was filling the first few pages of my new sketchbook. Guess what? I still have the sketchbook. I counted the pages the other day. There are 19 pages left. 19 pages between me and peace. I'm just going to fill the sketchbook as fast as I can and then just be done with it. Because maybe finishing something imperfect is better than constantly starting something new. Or maybe that's just something I say to make myself feel better. Today's Monday and I don't have a lot of time to actually draw anything in my sketchbook. I have a lot to do today, so I do have to make some thumbnail sketches for a new book illustration project. Also have to finish a small graphic design project. I did manage to just fill one page with only color, and my idea is to draw something on top of it and just play a bit with the texture. And maybe we'll get to do this today. Otherwise, I will just do it tomorrow morning. Let's start the day, and if I have anything interesting to show you, I will get back to you. I'm very good at loving beginnings. They're clean, they're full of potential. Reality, on the other hand, is messy. It doesn't care about the version I imagined in my head. And I think that's where most of my sketchbooks start falling apart. Not because the drawings are bad, but because they stop matching the expectation. I always imagine a sketchbook turning into something cohesive. Like every page is a fragment of a bigger idea. Everything fitting together perfectly. But that's rarely how it happens. Most pages are just attempts. Some good, some confusing, some that make me question all my life choices for a solid 5 minutes. Maybe that's the problem. I don't struggle with drawing. I struggle with the gap between what I imagined and what actually shows up. So last evening it started to snow and it's still snowing outside, which is something that makes me very happy. So I'm planning to go outside today, and I also started to read a new book which I'm going to bring with me. We want to go to a cozy little cafe. I'm going to get ready and then I'm going to head outside. think that's the real tension. Outside, everything is allowed to be messy. Snow falls wherever it wants, people walk without a bigger narrative, but in my sketchbook, I suddenly want everything to make sense. Because what I see from other artists are always the finished pieces, the nice drawings, the cohesive pages, the best version of their work. And then there's my sketchbook, where I see everything, the good parts, the awkward parts, the things that didn't work at all. And somehow that contrast makes it feel like I'm supposed to be more consistent than I actually am. Not to sound overly dramatic, but every time I buy a new sketchbook, I also buy a small piece of hope. New beginnings always feel like freedom, like none of your decisions exist yet. The good ones, the bad ones, everything is still possible. But that's also where it gets tricky. Okay, we reached 11 pages out of 19 pages. Okay, so right now we're here. I still have to finish this one. I would count it as 11 out of 19. I have to be honest. I reached a point where I feel like I'm starting to abandon the sketchbook again. To be honest, this is the exact reason why I started to film this video, because I knew this moment would come where it always starts with a motivation. I always, like whenever I start a sketchbook, it feels so inspiring and you have the motivation to just draw in it just because it's something new, and from the motivation, the inspiration comes, and then you keep doing it and it suddenly just feels a bit boring and it feels like a thing you have to do. So you just keep abandoning it more and more until it just sits there for weeks, months, or even with this here, years. At this point, I have to tell myself it's not about having the perfect looking sketchbook. It's not about making every page pretty. I think I have to just show myself that I can be consistent and that I can finish things. You will have up and downs, but it's just important to keep going and just fill this stupid thing. When I finish this sketchbook, then I'm allowed to buy a new one. And I think that's currently my main motivation, apart from having to film the video. And so, unsurprisingly, I ended up drawing pencil portraits again. And I've been thinking about why I always end up going back to pencil portraits, because they're actually the reason I started drawing in the first place. That was the thing I practiced the most. That was the thing that made it fun. And now it kind of works like a reset button. Looking back at this footage, it actually makes sense. I struggled to even start filling the sketchbook. So I began with small portraits. And then, halfway through, I started struggling again. And the solution was the same thing. More portraits. It's like I keep returning to the thing that originally made me want to draw in the first place. I think that I need a bit of a change of scenery, and I have an idea. Let's go. I figured if I'm stuck drawing portraits, I might as well look at how people way better than me have been doing it for a few hundred years. So I went to the Kunsthistorisches Museum in Vienna, and not gonna lie, it was actually really refreshing to go outside for a bit. Yes, artists also occasionally forget that there is a big world beyond their four walls. It was also just nice to be in a place that is so full of art that you kind of don't have a choice but to feel inspired. it was also kind of interesting going there alone and just noticing all the real people who were there that day, just walking around, looking at art. And in a time where it sometimes feels like people don't really value art anymore, especially with all the AI stuff everywhere, it was actually really nice to see that people still go to museums, that they still stand in front of paintings and sculptures and care. It just made it feel very real again. Like art is not something that's disappearing in the background. People are still there for it. This is how it turned out. So when I was sitting in the museum, I had a bit of problems with the perspective of the face. So I struggled a bit. I think I still didn't really get the perspective 100% right. But all in all, it's fine. This time I tried to stay close to the reference. Usually I take the reference and just do whatever I want with it. It's not the best portrait drawing, but I really had a lot of fun doing it. But while I was there, you saw me looking at this one particular painting in that one blue room. It did inspire me to take the portrait as the inspiration and just make something more in my style. And after that, I just kept going. No big breakthrough, no dramatic moment where everything suddenly made sense. I just sat down and filled the next page and then the next one. Some pages worked, some didn't, but I stopped waiting for them to become something bigger. The time has finally come. I officially reached the last page in my sketchbook, and now that I'm actually there, I feel very excited, and honestly it also feels super relieving. It feels like accomplishing something in your life. And I think that's the magic somehow of sketchbook. It just feels rewarding, but only when you're done with it, like when you finish a sketchbook. And during all this time when you fill up a sketchbook, it just feels somehow like a burden to have a sketchbook. Mostly my sketchbooks are just, I feel like I hate them all the time. Like every sketchbook I owned, I felt like I hate this sketchbook. This is the worst sketchbook I ever had. And then after I fill it up, when I come back to it and look through it, I always feel like, okay, this is not as bad as I had it in my memory. For the final spread, I thought of just continuing with the portraits that I started and just working with the same medium, like just using the same pencils. And hopefully the last spread will come together. I think this feels like the right way to end it. It's weird. I always reach the last page feeling excited, almost proud. And at the same time, I can clearly remember how much I complained about the sketchbook halfway through. I always do that. I hate it while I'm in it. And then once it's finished, it's suddenly not that bad. Which makes me question whether I actually hate my sketchbooks or if I just hate being in the messy middle. sketchbook is finally full. And I thought about making a small little sketchbook tour at the end of this video, but I think it's better to just make it into a separate video because I think that feels a bit more like its own thing. While I was finishing and drawing the last pages of this sketchbook, I was thinking about that I think there are two types of artists. There are the sketchbook people and people that fight their sketchbooks for 2 years. And I definitely fall into category 2. I always start a sketchbook very excited, and then at some point I start hating it. Not because the sketchbook is bad, but just because it becomes kind of a collection of all the things I'm not good at yet. And I know there are a lot of people, especially on social media, that make their sketchbooks look so nice and cohesive and effortless, like everything belongs there. And mine always feel just random. And now I honestly am wondering, maybe I'm not a sketchbook person.